Hey guys, welcome back to the Disciplined HQ podcast. I'm here with the one and only Makena. Makena, how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I'm excited about this.
Me
Anyone
too.
who's, I think, followed both of our journey has seen that we eventually did a podcast at one point, and I loved it. And that was really the impetus for getting all of this started. And so I'm excited to just be interviewing you now.
I know it's like like roles reversed. It's really cool, but I'm excited to. It's been a while too, so I'm excited to chat about any updates and things like that.
Yeah, because we talked before the podcast, and it was, I don't know, it's just been great to see how you've executed on everything that we talked about before. And so, like, you went on a massive journey, like, across the world, basically.
Yeah.
And it is just, I don't know, it's been fun to watch just because, like, you've
Thank
done the
you.
thing. And I always admire those people who are able to, like, set that plan, stick to it, and embrace the journey. Because, like, I mean, if anyone watched your journey, like, it was just crazy. You went from, like, what, Europe
Yeah,
to
I was like
all
in
these other
London,
places?
so I lived in London for a while, about like 6 months. But then from there, I mean, I went to Morocco, I did Copenhagen, I did Paris, I did Oktoberfest in Munich, which was amazing. Yeah, I just kind of traveled around and did all the things.
Jeez. Well, good job. You are setting the example for all of us for sure.
It was a
Okay,
trip of a
so
lifetime. A lot of tests. I was tested a lot in different ways, but I mean, it's all from where I came from and like adversity and all that fun stuff too. Like solo travel is not for the faint of heart. So it was definitely an experience, but it was one for the books.
yeah, I could not imagine being like married with kids now. I could not imagine going anywhere by myself, but it does
Yeah,
sound fun. My younger self would probably have enjoyed it.
that's where I'm at right now. So
Okay,
we're soaking it
so
in.
yeah, absolutely. So how we usually do this is the faith and fitness journey. We talked a little bit before, and let's just start at the beginning for you and how all of this got started as far as
Yeah,
like
it's
fitness.
yeah, no, it's actually kind of really connected, which is interesting. So I know I have two sides of the same coin, faith and fitness for me, kind of blended into what I do. But where it started for me was my fitness journey. I was probably around like 11 at the time, and I just wanted to be in the best shape of my life. I really wanted to, I had my sights set on D1 tennis, and I just wanted to be the best person I could be in the physical realm. So I took that to like very intense heights. I was doing tons of exercise, tons of training for that. And then at the same time, I think at around like 12 or 13, I was diagnosed with celiac disease. And essentially what that is an autoimmune condition that you can't have gluten. Like actually can't have it. I had it one time in Copenhagen. I was ruined. Can't have it. And so that set this, I guess, notion. And the weirdest thing about that for me was usually a lot of people have symptoms. Usually you have a lot of GI issues, you have like insomnia, like just a lot of negative things kind of going on in your body. I didn't know. I had no idea I was celiac. And so that was the first taste for me being like, oh my gosh, my body isn't talking to me. Something's wrong. And I took that to the nth degree. And I was like, my body's not telling me anything. It's wrong. It doesn't know what it needs, blah, blah, blah. So I took my training to way too far. I took eating clean, quote unquote, way too far because I didn't trust my body because it didn't tell me what was wrong in the first place. So I took clean eating, I took exercise
And what did you mean your
way,
body
way.
wasn't talking to you?
Well, I couldn't tell if I was doing anything right or wrong. Like celiac had no symptoms for me. And the doctors were like, yeah, if you keep doing it, like it's not going to look good. You're not going to absorb any nutrients. Your body's going to go into like a severe deficiencies and all these things, which little did they know I was already in deficiencies because I was so under eating and trying to eat clean. And so that kind of manifested into its own eating disorder. Now in the DSM, I think it's been released. It's called orthorexia. But when I had it, it was classified as anorexia because orthorexia didn't exist. Orthorexia is an obsession with clean eating and exercise, which I see so much in the space today. Like the amount of people on social
Yeah.
media preaching more or less the orthorexic approach, and I can just see right through it because been there, done that. I have those like sensors, I guess. But it's just so dangerous because it seems so innocent in the beginning and it's such a slippery slope. So I slid all the way down that slope. I was in inpatient treatment for about 6 or so years, living in hospitals around the country, just bopping around. Every time I finished one stay, I would get out, relapse, and go to another place. That was my life for like 6 or 7 years at this point. And so college dreams of D1 totally went away. My actual
So when
college
you say
dream,
relapse, like, were you
yeah.
thinking that this was actually like an addiction?
Well, yeah, that's more or less like how the brain chemistry works. So it's like people have their own
Mm.
vices. So it could be alcoholism, it could be self harm, it could be whatever it is. Mine happened to be food and exercise because it's never about the food. With an eating disorder, it never is about the food. It's always about what that means. So for me, it was control. I had no control in any other area of my life. I didn't even have control over my body. So the only thing I could control was the food. And so I latched onto that. And that's kind of where all of this, I guess, stemmed from, was like lack of control. So it could have been any vice, I guess, but my genetics, I guess, life circumstances, perfect storm, more or less, for me to develop an eating disorder. So that
Mm.
really was just kick in the face for me. I was like, I was in denial for a while. I didn't think it was real. And then when reality started hitting that my dreams were no longer a thing, like I trained so hard for a D1 tennis and couldn't do that anymore. It wasn't medically stable enough. I was in the hospital. I vividly remember one specific time because my memory is really hazy from that time. I was not doing too well. But I vividly remember one time, and the nurse came in and she's like, she told my dad, she goes, "You might want to say goodbye to your daughter." And I heard that. I was like, "Whoa, wait, what do you mean?" And she's like, "Her heart rate is so low, you
No
could lose her
way.
at any moment." Yeah. So that happened couple of times, probably 3 times. I know my heart rate was like ridiculously low, and it didn't hit me. It didn't hit me that hard until I started regaining consciousness again. Like my body started working. Because if you're not feeding yourself, your brain has no food. I was running off of nothing, and I was just a zombie, more or less, of who I was. And so looking back, I'm like,
So
I
what were
don't
your
know.
eating habits?
I just wasn't eating. Even if I was eating something super clean. So like
Like,
I would make like bone broth with like
mm,
cabbage, and that's like what I would eat for like lunch after like a 3 hour tennis session and like 2 hours
whoa,
at the gym. Yeah, it was not good. And now your girl eats really well, so love that for me. But it was very intense and severe to the point where I was exercising so much and eating so little that my body was actively like getting smaller. It was actively deteriorating in front of my eyes, and I couldn't see it. Looking back at photos from then, I don't have tons, but I was like, holy cow. Like, I cannot believe I looked like that. Completely different person. I've showed a couple of my friends, I showed my boyfriend like a photo from back then, and he's like, that's not you. Just that, like, the image is completely distorted. Like, that is not you. I'm like, it actually is. So, even looking back now, I'm like, that is just a
so like,
wild
were you
part of my journey.
satisfied with your body?
No, I never was. And that's the sneaky thing about disorders and all that is
Mm.
like you're never satisfied. I always thought I could be this. I thought I could be thinner. I thought I could be stronger. I thought I could have like nothing is ever enough. So no matter what I did, I still was really unhappy.
Mm.
Yeah.
Goodness. And so you were in the hospital, potentially almost died.
Yeah.
And so was there ever, like, when was that breakthrough moment for you?
Yeah. So I don't know when it was like, I feel like it was a specific moment later in my life, but more or less, I just kept going. So again, I would get out, I would go back in, I get out, I go back in. And then college came around where I graduated high school. I was in high school for maybe like a year of it total. Like I was out and doing I was doing school online before it was cool. I always like to say, but from there, I was like, okay, I need something to like keep me going. So I got accepted to college and I was going to school in Boston. I was from Ohio at the time, so it was not a close thing. So I was like, okay, let's pack up the car, let's go to school, whatever. And I thought I was going to do okay. I convinced my parents to let me do like to move in, see how it goes. And then obviously, if anybody saw anything going wrong, I still wasn't cleared to do tennis. But if anybody saw anything going wrong, I had like mandatory nurse visits I had to do a couple times a week to check my weight and all that stuff. Like they were on me. So they didn't want me, especially the school, to be a liability of, oh, this girl is not really doing well. Why is she in our system? So I failed the nurse visits.
And
Like,
so were
well,
you on a
I guess
scholarship
I
for
decided,
tennis or?
huh?
Were you on a scholarship for tennis? Because it sounds like you were a stud athlete. Like you were going through this eating disorder, but you were also like killing it in school and on the court. So I just can't admit, like, first of
Yeah,
all,
so
that
I
like
got a
mental
lot of
fortitude to like not be able to eat, but also be able to kill it is insane.
Yeah, I was on something crazy, but I feel like for me, got a scholarship for academics, so that carried me mainly through. And then it was a D2 school, so they didn't do scholarship for sports because we had D1 hockey, so all their money went to D1 hockey, of course. But I ended up being
Uh,
captain at the end of my college career, I think 2.5 years. And then I was actually coach of our team for the last season. And I was like number one on the team. So I finally figured my shit out eventually and got to where I needed to be. But that was definitely not the first year. I just wasn't even cleared to play. And so I got to the point where I was like, okay, I came to college because I did not want to do college. I just wanted to play tennis. And I'm at this place where I can't even play tennis. And I was doing weekly therapy appointments, my dietitian, like my weekly nurse visits, and all this stuff. And I was just like, this is not how I want my college to go. Like, this is not it. I decided that first week, or I moved in, did orientation, all that stuff. I decided within that first week to take a year off of school. So I'd worked so hard to go into school, and I decided to take that year off of school to then circle back, go back to treatment for a year, figure my stuff out for real this time, I told myself, and then come back to school a year later, not needing any extra supports. Because I was like, I want to do college the right way. I don't want to have to check in with the nurse 2 times a week and then go see my therapist, my dietitian, and all this stuff. And it was just becoming like, I wasn't enjoying college and I was going to be even more stressed with schoolwork and all the things. And I didn't feel like myself. So I was like, give me another year. I'm going to go figure out my stuff. So back to treatment I went. And then that break, that winter break for me, that was the thing. That was the time when everything changed. I went back home to Ohio and I had nothing to do. I had no job, I had no schoolwork, nothing. And so my mission was to eat. And I don't know where it came from, but I put on a good amount of weight in like 2.5 weeks. I swear I would get up and I would eat literally until I would go to bed. And I put on a good amount of weight. Don't know where that came from. And I like to say like that was like faith intervening for me because that was the only thing holding me together in those like low, low, low points was like reading the Bible or like studying and just like immersing myself in that. My grandma was really, really, really big into the faith. And so seeing her example of like she always prayed the rosary and like she just was a very lovely woman and I wanted to emulate her. And so there's a couple of instances where I'm like, yeah, I should have not been here and miraculously like I was. There has to be something higher. And I grew up in the faith as well, but that was kind of the solidification for me like, oh, okay, I got confirmed. I just went through the motions and I was like, wait, there's something here. So I really just like harped on that through my whole entire like recovery, and then eventually got to the point where I was like, okay, I'm feeling really good. Like I have my ducks in a row. I'm more recovered now. So I went back to school. This time did orientation again. I moved in that year later, and from there, I don't want to say smooth sailing, but smoother sailing. I hired my first fitness coach, and that's kind of where it all ties in. Is like I eventually hired a fitness coach online, which is what I do now, and she changed my life. Like changed my life to this day. Like I dedicate a lot of my progress to her because she's the one who helped me see that it doesn't have to always be so intense when it comes to food and fitness, and you can still have a life and have the physique you want and have the friendships you want and have other things you enjoy in your life other than just hyper fixating on like food and fitness. So hired her, changed my life, went
mm.
back to tennis. Long story short, now I'm a fitness coach, love what I do, stronger than I've ever been. Ended my tennis season, like I said, 2 time captain, 2.5 time captain, I guess. Halftime coach, our coach quit, so I was coach for our last season. And yeah, I led the team for a while. And like that for me was like a very big full circle moment from being told I couldn't play to ending my senior year, like top of the team.
Yeah. Heck yeah. Way to go. Goodness. What was it like whenever you made that decision that you were going to do nothing but eat? Because like, you weren't bulimic, so it's not like I don't know. Was
Mm-mm.
there a guilt whenever you were eating?
I don't think so. I think in
Okay.
that moment, it was 7 years of my life where I was in this yo yo pattern of, and I feel like a lot of women experience this too with dieting. Like you'll go on a diet, then you bounce back out. Obviously, this is a bit more severe in case, but it's same principle, right? Like you'll go in, do your thing, rebound, and that's kind of how it was for 7 years of my life. And it took everything away from me. It took tennis away from me. It took friendships away from me. It took my teen years away from me. I didn't have a teenage like experience from like 11, 12 to
Yeah.
18. I was in treatment. Like I lost those years of my life, formative years. Like I just won't get those back. And now even I have a lot of hormonal imbalances and all this stuff stemming still from what happened when I was younger. So like I didn't realize the depth and the breadth of what actually was going on. But I think in that moment I was like, there's some like it's not okay. And ever until that moment I was like, it's fine, like I'll figure it out. And then in that moment where I came back from winter break, I was like, it's all or nothing. I fix this now or I don't fix it. And I think for me, it was never really about the weight that I gained. So I gained weight a ton of times in treatment. Like that was their goal with me. I swear I was eating so much freaking food. And they would make me these like milkshakes with like extra calorie boosters. Like I was eating a lot of food. So I would come out of treatment heavier than I went in, like more in a healthy weight. I ended up losing all the weight I gained in treatment and going back again. So gaining weight wasn't necessarily like a new thing for me. I knew how to do it, but it was the execution of that. And I think doing it on my terms because I'm a very stubborn individual. So the way that they were telling me to do it was not the way I wanted to do it. So when I was able to make my food, eat my food, do all the things, like I was baking brownies, I was doing all this stuff. Like I was making food that I would rather eat instead of something in like a hospital. So that was, I think, helpful. And it was on my own terms. Like I had to decide for myself that I was done with my eating disorder because a lot of my life, other people were deciding for me that I was done with my eating disorder because I was under 18. So when they were deciding for me, I was like, well, I'm not doing that. You can say I'm doing that. I'll do it to please you. But the second that I'm out of this treatment center, like all bets are off kind of thing. So I think this was the first time that I chose it for
Yeah.
myself because I saw the repercussions it was having in my life.
Yeah. And it's so crazy that you're definitely right. Like control is your thing.
Yeah.
I mean, it just whenever you think of like an eating disorder, most people are thinking like, I need to do this because I need to get fit. I need to do this because I need to have a six pack. I need to be anorexic because I want to be thin. Like for you,
And
it
that's maybe where
was
it starts, right? That
control,
could be where it
like
starts, but that's
control over
not
what you were eating.
it's not where it ends, right? Like exactly. So where it starts for a lot of people is I
Yeah.
want to look a certain way, I want to do this. And sure that's cool motivation in the beginning, but then it goes way too far. And like there comes a point where like the rational mind is going to be like, okay, like you're way too thin, you're unhealthy, you're risking bone density loss. And I had osteopenia, which is like the step below osteoporosis, and I was like 12 years old. They're like, you have bones of like an 80-year-old woman. And I was like, say what now? And like that didn't even hit me. Like logic just doesn't penetrate whenever you're that deep in it. And so for me, it was like, okay, I had to decide. And that's the biggest thing is like whenever it does come to that, such severe cases of control or whatever it might be for the specific person around that food, it never started in an intention to hurt themselves. It started as an intention to do something for their surroundings, control their life in whatever aspect of it. And it just gets so out of control. And at that point, honestly, like it wasn't even me thinking. It really was a disorder. And it's just wild to think like it feels like there's a parasite or something in my brain. I always called it like a parasite or like salt and pepper, where like my brain was a salt, but there was like pepper scattered throughout and I couldn't quite pick out all the pepper. Like it's a very weird experience to go through and it's really hard to explain, but it really feels like you're not even thinking for yourself. So
Yeah. And so do you feel like you still struggle with like elements of control, or
oh
do you
yeah,
feel like you have mastery over what you can control or can't?
I would say control has been a big thing of my life. Not in a negative way anymore. Like I'm way more under control of my needing to be in control. But like starting my own business because I didn't want to work for a 9 to 5. Buying a house, moving away. I did, like I said, 6 months in Europe. Like I like to know what I'm doing. I even told my boyfriend, I'm like, you better not surprise me. Like I need to know what's going on. So like just a lot of things I feel like I need to know. I need to know. I need to plan. My Google Calendar is my life. I swear I invite my friends in college. I thought it was hilarious. But I had a couple of other friends who were very much like calendar obsessed. And everything in my calendar had an exact, like it's a puzzle piece. It fits together. And I would invite my friends via Google Calendar to hang out because I was such packed schedule and I wanted to fit them in. So I would like invite them for like a lunch or whatever, whenever I needed to hang out with them. And I thought it was so funny for that. But that kept my brain like consistent and insane. I still love the gym, but just in a different way. And I think right now I love life more than I did before, because before I just loved the control aspect more than I love my life. Now I love my life more than I love the control aspect of it.
Mm, yeah, that's great. And so you said that faith was an element through this whole
Oh,
journey.
yeah.
So where were you at, like with God or with your faith?
So I always grew up in the faith, and then kind of going through like faith formation and like all that at like younger education. So I was like, meh, like I don't really want to be here. Like get me out of Sunday school. So I never really fell into it until I started to get sick. I didn't really have a safe place to go. Like there was no safe haven for me until I found the church. And then that's where my youth group was at the church. And I just started to go to things. They would have like Bible studies on Wednesdays and we would do like prayers on Tuesdays. So I would go to all of these things. And this was my one place in my life at the time that didn't care that I had an eating disorder, or didn't know and didn't actively treat me differently. So I really latched onto those people and that environment, and just like the peace of being able to go to a place where I'm just a normal person and I'm not somebody who you have to have eyes on 24/7, someone who you can look at weird. Like if I were to go into public, I would get stared at just because I looked so not good. And that was like one place where I could go and nobody really gave me a second thought. Of course, they cared about me, but they weren't in the place to be like shaming me or controlling me or doing anything that treatment
Yeah.
centers and people in my life had done up until that point. So that's kind of where it started, was like a safe place for me. And then from there, the safe place turned into I got confirmed in the church. And I actually remember, I was telling my boyfriend this last night. I actually remember the confirmation. I have a picture. I was not doing well. And I convinced the hospital wanted me to be admitted, I think 2 or 3 days before my confirmation. And I was like, no, I worked too hard for this. I'm getting confirmed. So I was able to convince them to push off my hospitalization date to the day after I got confirmed. So I literally walked into a church, I got confirmed. Then the next morning, we drove me to the hospital and I went into treatment again. And like just that thought of me like fighting for something that, not like I didn't want to go to Disneyland or I didn't want to go on a trip or anything. Like I wanted to go to church and get confirmed. And that was enough for me to argue to push off my date to go to the hospital. And at that point, that was like one of the only things keeping me going, because at that point, there's nothing really else I'm fighting for. It's I'm in a hospital, I don't have any control over anything. My heart rate's so low. I'm not doing well at all. And what comes there is like, okay, I have choices. What do I want to do? Where do I spend my time? What do I think about? Because you're locked in a room. Like it's not like you have tons of opportunities, right? So they even limited like the TV channels I could watch to like nothing food related or like exercise related, which obviously makes sense. But like I was basically in a little box, like a little white box for weeks, and I couldn't do anything. So I was like thinking about, okay, I got confirmed, blah blah blah, reading more of my Bible, reading more, like I think I read different prayers, and I was just like really diving into it, really. And that's really, I honestly say, what saved me multiple times, because at that point there was really nothing for me to fight for in my life, because there was nothing worth fighting for in my life. My scholarship's been taken away. I didn't really have any plans post grad. Nothing really was lining up. So like the only thing for me to necessarily put my stake in and fight for was because I knew, and that's kind of where the name of my podcast came from. I knew I was made for more. I knew that wasn't the end of my story when I was 13 in a hospital bed. Like that's not where my story ended. So I was able to push through, able to push for more. And that's kind of where my faith really just catapulted everything. And then from there, I got really involved in youth ministry. I was really involved in the church at my college. And then now I go to church every Sunday with my boyfriend and we pray before every meal. Like it's still very much in my daily practices. I have a lot of friends who also are Christian, which is awesome to just like have that camaraderie with them. And it's a thread that's been different in my entire life, but it's been through my entire life, just in different, I guess, amounts. So yeah.
Yeah. So when you say you were like fighting for your faith in like the hospital, like what does that look like?
Yeah.
Like are you striving towards salvation, or are you striving towards like what is it that when you're fighting for it, what are you fighting for?
I think it was more just like life and like trusting God and knowing that everything would be okay because I'd so often been told that before, but I never really felt that before. And so I think the first couple of times where it was like, no, you're not doing well, like this could be it kind of thing. And I just like put my faith in God. And of course, you
Mm.
can only do so much with like faith. You actually have to do the thing you're asking for. So like I couldn't just say like, "Oh, save me," and then like not eat my food or like just completely disobey orders. Like I couldn't do that because it just doesn't make sense. So I was like working with what I was asking for, but I couldn't have done it by myself. There's no way I could have been completely healed and from my recovery, eating disorder, all that stuff without my faith. No way, shape, or form. And I like to also say, too, like, people don't think full recovery is possible. I see so many people who'd struggled before and been like, no, you're always going to have a little bit with you. You're always going to have to just make sure you're checking in with yourself pretty constantly to make sure nothing's popping up and all this stuff. Like, I have none of that anymore. I swear it was part of I actually named my eating disorder at one point because that was told to be like helpful to dissociate you from the eating disorder, like have two separate things so you're not engulfing yourself in that identity. And so in therapy, they're like, what do you want to name your eating disorder? People were like, Fred, Mary, whatever, like they wanted to name it. And first of all, I was like, I could never name it a person because anybody who I've ever known with that name would be tainted. And that's like, I'm never going to name my child a name with that I name my eating disorders. Like, I had to name it something funky. And I named it Satan, but backwards. It was Natus. That was my name for my eating disorder. So, like, even then, I was knowing that I was not fighting against
Uh,
something that, like, it was like something that was there to try and harm me, but I'm a control freak and I'm very perseverant and I won't let that harm me was more or less my like spin on it. So like constantly my parents would be like, how's Natus today? And like all that stuff because we named it something. So I wasn't putting myself with it. It was me fighting against something else that we had a name for. I drew a picture of it. Like it was a monster that I was trying to get out. And I couldn't have done that by myself. 100% like God was there.
yeah. And I love that perspective of not looking at it as you will be delivered from it or I will
Mhm.
just submit and God will take this from me. Like there is an acknowledgement of there is work that
Work.
I'm going to have to do to allow God to move through this.
100%. Because I could have been so defiant with
So I
all
love
of
that.
my things I was supposed to do in the hospital. Like, I could have been so defiant and been like, oh, God will take care of me. Like, God take the wheel kind of thing. But it doesn't work like that because
Mm,
you actually have to do the work in the world to get what you want in, like, from God because He works in ways. If you ask for patience, He's going to give you places to be patient. If you ask for strength, He's going to give you ways to test your strength. Like,
yeah.
there are opportunities. It's not just going to be handed to you. And I think that was a really big like mind opening thing for me was like, okay, I asked for these things. I think I asked for, I don't know, I was praying for something specific and I got an opportunity to employ that whatever it was many a times during like the whole thing. It was like patience I know was one of them because treatment will test your patience and like things like that. And so I was given opportunities to test those things and I was like, shoot, this is what I'm getting, isn't it? So from there I was like, okay, like let's just work together and do this. And I couldn't have leaned like leaning on myself wasn't an option, so I had to lean on somebody else or something else. And I didn't want to lean on anybody here because at that point I was very distrusting. I was like under 18, so I didn't have any control. Wherever the doctors or my parents said I went because I was under 18, right? I was just moved around. And so I couldn't lean on
Yeah.
anybody in this like physical world. So I was like, okay, well, God, let's go. So
That's awesome. And so what does post recovery look like? Or what does post eat the eating disorder look like?
yeah, life. Like life without any limitations. So even my friend, she also recovered from an eating disorder,
Yeah.
and she came over for dinner with her boyfriend the other night, and we were like looking at each other like we could have never done this. Like years ago, we were struggling. We could have never had dinner in peace, not worrying about my boyfriend cooked, not worrying about what sauce he made, how much butter he used. Like, we could have never done that. Or even as simple as like having dessert. Like, we have ice cream almost every single night. And every single night, I'm like, what do you want? What kind of Klondike bar do you want? Do you want the chocolate one or the vanilla one? Like, every night to my boyfriend. And he's like, I'll take the vanilla or I'll take chocolate. And like my head, I'm like, I could have never. Like I remember vividly crying when I was forced to eat ice cream when I was in my eating disorder. Like I could have never done that. Or even simple things as like going for a walk and not hitting my step goal. never would have ever thought that would be possible. Or going to the gym and not staying for 2 hours. Or even like something as stupidly simple as having a snack in my bag and not hyperfixating on it all day, forgetting that it's there. When I was in my eating disorder, I would pack myself snacks. I would never eat them. I just wanted to know food was there, and I would hyperfixate on literally all day. No matter where I was, what I was doing, like I'd always know, oh, there's a granola bar in my bag. There's granola bar in my bag. Like every second of every day. So like now it's like just bringing my bag around. Oh, like I'm hungry, but I have something. Complete 180. Or like honestly, the simplest of things mean the most to me because I realize how far I've come, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Oh man, I love it. And so where you're at now is very different. So
Yeah.
what was the journey like in your fitness life? Were you thinking bodybuilding? Like, were you wanting to get strong? Because I know you said like you had the bone density of an 80-year-old woman. And so like, were you prioritizing like powerlifting or strength programming to like build that bone density? Or what
Yeah.
was that fitness journey like?
When it was doing it correctly, my coach was like, "You're doing a lot less cardio, and we're gonna go all in on like strength training, but properly." Because I was looking back at my past workouts, I was doing like 13 to like 25 exercises a workout, and now my leg days are like four exercises and I'm done. Like it was horrible. I was looking back, I was like, "How? Literally how?" So like they were way too long, way too intense. Like it was just I literally, you couldn't pay me to do a workout that I did when I was younger. Absolutely not. And so I was like, okay, what do I need to do? She told me exactly what to do. I fell in love with the strength training aspect of it. And I did take it to the point where I don't want to say too far, but to very much like bodybuilding, counting macros, which was a really good thing for me to show me what food was or what was in food and what I needed to like live. It was more than I thought I did. So that was very helpful. But it got to the point, not got to the point where I was just so stressed and there was a lot going on in my life and I couldn't track anymore. Stopped tracking, started living more intuitively, and it worked out really well for me. Mental health stuff came back. I lost a little bit of weight unintentionally. And so now it's more like going in hormonally and going in minerally and like all the balancing and stuff. I just got a test done because ever since my eating disorder, there's been things wrong with my body that no medical doctor has been able to explain because it's just so complex and there's so many things going on. And so I got a test done, which this is the first time I've ever been validated by a medical professional. And I cried yesterday when I got the results back because I did a hair mineral or hair trace mineral analysis, an HTMA test. And it's with one of my really good friends. And she's like, tell me what you want me to do. I'm like, these are my symptoms, figure it out essentially. So I sent in the test, the sample, I got back the results and she did the analysis on them and she's like, everything makes so much sense. This mineral is off, I think you have copper toxicity, blah blah blah, blah. Like all down the list. And I'm like, this just like validates me like none else. So now I'm focused a lot more on like the obviously still going to the gym, but like healing myself from the inside, making sure I have enough minerals, like drinking orange juice and coconut water, which before my macro days had been too high sugar or too high carb that I wouldn't have had them. So now it's definitely finding more of a balance in like the everyday side of things. Very grateful for like the bodybuilding side that I had, and I'm still in that 100%, but it's not ride or die everything I can do to get the most protein. It's really like what I need in a day, like salting my food more, getting more selenium, like just basic little things that my body was severely lacking. And I have a very severe case of burnout. She's like, your labs or your test very much shows your adrenal fatigue and like how much your adrenals are essentially failing. And so I'm on a couple of supplements or just getting my body back like working properly after years of overworking myself, trying to be in control of my business and like working 12-hour days and all the things. So I'm in a season of, I guess, restoration and healing, which I'm excited for, but still, of course, bodybuilding, still getting my steps in, still sleeping enough and all that stuff, but more or less like my body is guiding where we go, not my goals anymore, which is a weird switch, but it's needed. It's needed.
Yeah. And I love that about hearing going through the process of understanding your macros. I feel like this is something that kids should do in high school. Like every kid in high school should go through like a year where you have to track everything that you eat, understand what calories look like and all the different kinds of food. And but the part that you hit on that I had never clicked until now was because I did the counting your macro stuff and I still do it
Yep.
now, but and I'm only now at 34 coming to the realization that like, oh wait, I do need minerals and vitamins.
Yeah.
So like I always thought like strong greens and strong reds were like, yeah, that's just a sales tactic. Like no one actually needs that. Like just eat food, you're fine.
Yeah.
And so
Yeah.
now eventually like eating greens and reds are like, oh well, this actually does feel a little bit better. So maybe they weren't just trying to sell me something. But yeah, the perspective of the like not or counting your macros and like that is not the only goal because yeah, your fat could be on point for the day, your carbs could be on point for the day, protein's on point, but like did you just eat egg whites and like bread and like a tablespoon of grass-fed butter and like where is the
Yeah.
actual nutrients and all of that? Like it's all pretty nutrient void.
Yeah, no, 100%. I see this with clients literally all the time because I track macros with my clients and they're looking at their nutrition diaries and it looks so good. And then I'm like, wait, we're stalling at a fat loss plateau or we're not really feeling that good. Like, what's going on deeper? And I look at their diaries and I'm like, I see what's going on here. We're not having anything of substance. We're having a lot more like protein shakes. We're having a lot more like high carb or low carb tortillas and like all of this stuff that's more filler foods. I'm like, why don't we switch? And I'm a very big proponent of the Mediterranean diet just as a ideology. I'm not saying you have to go like strict Mediterranean, but more fruits and vegetables, more olive oil, more like good quality foods, you know? And so that's more what I try to get my clients to do is a lot more high quality vegetables, fruits, olive oils, nuts, seeds, like those kinds of things that yes, you're still going to hit your macros, but you're going to feel 10 times better in the process because you're actually doing things that are going to
Yeah.
your body's going to thank you for. Not just your muscles are going to thank you for, but your body's going to thank you for. And especially as we get older, like hormone imbalances are a lot more common. A lot of issues are popping up, especially with the foods that we eat. They're just they don't have enough nutrients, like as much as they did when 50 years ago. Different soil and all that stuff. So it really is important to make sure we're getting enough food and not only food, but enough micronutrients because that's, if not, at more important than the macros that we're getting in a day.
Yeah, absolutely. And so, what would, if someone's listening to this and they want to get started on, like, maybe they're doing counting your macros, what could they do to increase the nutrients that they're getting in their day?
Yeah, so I usually like to say if you're having 2 or 3 cups of coffee a day, like cut one of them out. One of the biggest things we can do with people who have a lot of coffee is they're usually very much go, go, go. So most likely we need coffee to stay up, to have energy, to keep going with work, whatever it might be. Swap that out for it's a fun name, but like an adrenal mocktail or like an adrenal cocktail. It's basically just a source of potassium, it's a source of magnesium, and I believe it's just sodium. I think those are the three. Correct me if I'm wrong, just Google it. But for me, I like to put coconut water, orange juice, and a pinch of sea salt, and it helps energy wise, it helps mineral wise because you're getting all the things like you're getting the potassium, you're getting the magnesium that you need, but also and the sodium that you need without relying on just pure caffeine. So that is something you can easily swap into your day. I just went to the store yesterday and got more coconut water and orange juice and stuff. And then like pink Himalayan sea salt, just like looking for like instead of iodized sea salt, looking at Celtic sea salt, pink Himalayan sea salt. Just like simple swaps like that. And I would even say like the variety of fruits and vegetables. So I usually challenge my clients to get one fruit or veggie in every single meal. This ideal servings for a day are like way over what any American really ever eats for the fruit and vegetables. I think it's like 7 servings, something crazy for a lot of people could never. So I'm like just one each meal and we'll see how we go. And if they need more inspiration, whatever's in season or go to the grocery store and pick up something you've never had before and make a meal out of it is what I usually like to say. So just more nutrient, more minerals because they're not very calorie dense. So we can fit a lot more than you think you can in just your daily life. But we have to make that extra effort because it is so much easier if you have like 20 grams of carbs left and 10 grams of fat. It's so much easier to be like, oh, I'm just gonna have like a granola bar or like a ice cream bar or whatever it might be, and I'm all for that, but it's not as easy to say like, oh, I'm gonna cut up strawberries and I'm gonna have some Greek yogurt with chocolate chips or whatever it might be. Like that's a lot more effort than just like, oh, okay, just look in the pantry for something that has like similar macros. So it's more effort on the front end, but you're gonna save money on medical costs, on supplements, and the vitamins. People buy vitamins all the time; they don't even take them. So save money on vitamins, save actually to start feeling better, have more energy, digestion, all the things. And I'm all for blood tests, just getting your regular panels checked and everything from a holistic practitioner, goodness, because any doctor, like GP, regular physician, they don't usually check what needs to be checked or like ask questions why. I went to the dermatologist, kind of related, and I was like, what do I need to do? Like, I eat really well, I drink my water, I had really bad acne. And she was like, your testosterone is overactive. Like, I'm going to give you a suppressant and you're going to take that until you're like 80 years old. And I was like, hold on, rewind. How do you know my testosterone's high?
Which every
She's like,
gym bro right now is like, wait, what are you eating to get your
I
testosterone?
know. No, I know. I was like, wait, I should kind of hold on to this because this could be like work in my favor. But she was like, it's high. I was like, how do you know it's high? She's like, exactly where your acne is, your symptoms, and everything. I was like, okay. Well, then what can we do to naturally bring that down? She's like, naturally just take this pill. I was like, I don't want to take another pill. Like, I don't want to be on medication until I'm 80 years old. And I'm like, what test can you do? Like, what can you do for me? She's like, take the pill, or really that's it. I was like, that's all you're gonna tell me? No blood test, no nothing, just like prescribe me a pill. And so I'm so glad I went to like this holistic practitioner, and she's like, yeah, this is why your testosterone is high. You have hidden copper toxicity, most likely. You have low minerals. All of my like ratios of certain minerals were way off, and she's like, if we can help get these in check, like your acne should go away, your like fatigue should go away, all this stuff should start working better. I'm like, thank goodness there's people out there who'll do stuff like this instead of just going to traditional medicine doctor and being like, oh, like you're fine. Or my recently someone in my family went to the doctor, and same thing, they tested her labs and they're like, oh, your TSH, your thyroid is underactive. Like your TSH is not in range. You have hypothyroid. And I was like, whoa. She's told me that. And I was like, hold on, rewind. She's like, yeah, so I'm on a medication now. I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. The little I know about hormones, like we need more than that to diagnose hypothyroid. You need to look at your T3, your T4, and these things they don't pull because they're not medically necessary. Well, they are medically necessary because if you knew how the body functions, you would ask for more labs. So it really is just fighting for your health, asking questions, and I'm the first person to know it sucks because medical professionals don't always listen to you when you say something's wrong. I've been to so many doctors for like GI stuff and all this, and they just never really listen. So it really is advocating for yourself and finding people that are actually willing to help you. In a big nutshell, I guess that answers your question, I hope.
No, it does. That's perfect. And a few questions. So first of all, coming from again the bro science type of dude
Yeah.
and not really ever taking the minerals advice, it sounds like what you're saying is pills aren't the way to go. Like if you want to get the greens and reds in, like is a shake a good idea, or is it better to, I mean, I feel like I know the answer, but is it better to eat the whole foods?
I would say eat the whole food. Just purely off the like off bioavailability. Essentially, what bioavailability is the ability of your body to use the nutrients in that said food. Medications or like supplements usually have, if you look at the back of like a vitamin D supplement or something, it's usually like 500 times what you need in a day because your body can't absorb 100% from a pill. So it puts so much extra in there so you can absorb a little bit more. Thing is, they're again not very bioavailable, and it doesn't have as many interactions with other foods in your body as an actual food would. If you have, say, carrots, they're going to have so many, and I'm having 2 carrots a day for estrogen detoxification. And I know it sounds woo woo, but if you look at the science of it, it all makes sense about how nutrients work together and et cetera, et cetera. So if you're looking at like, oh, a carrot, okay, well, you can get that in reds and greens, whatever it might be, or you can actually eat that has beta carotene. It has like this, a long list of things that work better in harmony because that's how it was created. That's how God created it, right? It's meant to be eaten like that. And instead of boiling it down to like a powder, right? So I would say definitely eating the food is 100% more beneficial than taking it. But if you're eating the food, doing the things, and you're still deficient in it, that's a place for supplementation. I just see people reach for supplements way too fast and don't even think about what they're eating in a day, which that's completely backwards because food first. Food is medicine, so food always first.
Yeah. And that kind of follows up on the next question, which is where would you get lab tests done? And so, like any lab tests now or
Yeah, so for
anything you would
labs, you're gonna have
suggest?
to find a practitioner that will run a full panel of labs. I have somebody on my team, and she's absolutely fabulous in what she does. And she gave all of us a list of whatever we should get done every single year. The thing is, the tricky part with that is you have to find a practitioner who's willing to run those labs because not every doctor will run the labs that you ask for. You ask for a full thyroid panel, they'll run TSH and call it good. You need free T3, free T4, like you need all of these extra things, LH, like all the things they're not testing. So it's hard, first of all, to find a practitioner that will do that. I have a couple of people via like online who will be able to run that for you and be able to interpret it for you more holistically. But there's also ways for like other routes of things that you might want to get going on. There's Dutch tests for hormones. There's a GI map for GI stuff. There's an HTMA for hair trace minerals like I did, and all of the other things that are really whatever you need. There's a test out there for you that's in the holistic route. The bummer is insurance won't cover it for most people. But the positive is that you're actually going to get answers instead of wasting your time with copays. I swear I've wasted so much money with like copays for GI doctors and waiting months to get in and all this stuff and just still getting nowhere. I was actually told to get a colonoscopy when I was like 12 and I was like, what? What do you mean? Because they were like, yeah, nothing else is showing up. Like this is our next best guess. And I was like, okay, no. So like you're just paying for all these things that are not really
Yeah.
getting you anywhere. It's horrible. But I've been through that myself. And so like on the other side, sure, like these tests are maybe 100 or a couple $100 like up front, but you're actually going to get the answers, actually start feeling better a lot sooner than you can even get an appointment with another doctor. So it's finding the people a little bit harder, but I have some good names. If anybody wants to reach out to me and like tell me what your symptoms are, like I'd be more than happy to send you to a practitioner that I know and trust. And again, they're licensed. It's not like Bob down the street in his house. Like they're licensed people, but they practice from more of the, I guess, Western and Eastern medicine kind of coming together. So there's more options for treatment instead of just another medication.
Yeah, and that was the other thing I was going to just touch on is the, and I guess this might just be me talking, but the lack of trust in the Western medicine side. So, like you
Yep.
said, you go to the doctor, and this is why I avoid going to the doctor at all costs
Yep.
because I feel and also know that like there is an incentive to give you a pill. There is
Yep.
a financial incentive for them to give you a pill or try and do something on their terms that would they think make it better. But like you said, they don't exactly know. Like they didn't test for all the things that you wanted them to test for. And like you said, you
Yep.
do need to advocate for yourself. And so how do you said you have a resource for holistic doctors and how would so like if someone's in, I don't know, North Dakota or something, how
Yep,
would they
it's in
go
every
about
state.
finding
So
a
that's the tricky
holistic
thing is
doctor?
like usually when you are looking for a doctor, a prescription, or something, you need somebody licensed in the state. A couple of practitioners that I know, they have people licensed in every state, so they can get tested whenever you need. Canada's tricky though. We have a couple of clients in Canada and they're like, we can't get tested, or like LabCorp or whatever, just won't like. Canada's tricky. Love Canadians, it's hard, but in the states it's more or less easy, and then even in Hawaii too, like we know somebody in Hawaii, so it really is just like who you know and being in the space long enough and having enough connections. I've gotten to know a lot of amazing people who actually know what they're talking about, which is incredible. So it really is just figuring out where you have where you need the lab work done or what tests you need even, because it might not be lab work. I mean, it should be, everybody should get labs, but it might also be a Dutch test for hormones if things are off. It might also be like whatever it might be. And I have a lot of women right now, perimenopause age, who are on HRT. Traditionally, that's been hormonal replacement therapy. Has been used for more males, like just testosterone replacement, really. But it has a whole host of benefits for females,
Mhm.
especially perimenopause or especially postmenopause, when hormones really tank. So there is a place for every kind of medicine for every single person. It's just finding one, someone who's going to listen, and two, someone who's actually give you the right answers, run the right tests, and all that stuff. And again, if anybody needs any recommendations, reach out to me. I have couple of names, and I don't get commission or anything off of this. I just want you guys to feel better because I know the pain. I know the pain.
Yes, and that is definitely like the concern that most people, and again, I think that we touched on that is like the trust that you would have for a doctor is limited right now
Yep.
whenever you go into Western medicine. And
Oh,
so,
100%.
so they go to a holistic doctor. If they break out the crystals, do you leave?
I've never, well, there's actually, I was listening to a podcast the other day, and a lot of like fertility issues are kind of going on. And so this doctor or this lady, she was like, I went to a Chinese doctor, and she's like, I walked in and there was like crystals and stuff, and I just like couldn't. And then she's like, she actually like very much helped me. So, I mean, I wouldn't judge a book by its cover, but yeah, I've never been in the
Yeah.
place where I needed to go into a place with crystals. So tread with caution.
And again, I'm for like some of the Eastern stuff, like
Oh,
crystals, no.
100%.
Acupuncture, yes, there is
Oh, yeah.
some science there. But yeah, okay. So where are you at right now? And I feel like I want to do a follow-up interview sometime in the future just on like
Yeah.
the business aspect of McKenna. But like, how can people find you now, and like, what is it that you offer?
Yeah, so I'm actually in another season of transition, would you guess or not? So just DM me. I have links in my bio for applications and everything as well. I'm in like yet again another transition. Still coaching. I love it so much. But just in a different season, I guess, of life. I have a lot of free resources that I just never market anymore. So I have everything from like grocery list to workout plans to travel guides for food to food freedom to this, like everything that you could possibly need. So just let me know what you guys need and I can give you specifically what you need because I've been building resources for the last like 6 years. I have something for every single person. Instagram and TikTok are my main ones, and then I send out emails 3 times a week to my email list. But yeah, just balance McKenna, Instagram, and TikTok.
Nice. And so, if anyone's going through any sort of eating disorder right now, what would you say to them?
You gotta keep on persevering. Even listening to an episode like this is huge progress. And again, like being in the space, I have tons of friends who are in the space of fitness and eating disorders, and it is possible. I actually have a friend who's getting certified through an eating disorder recovery center to be a fitness coach for people in recovery, because that's a very fine line between recovery or eating disorders, recovery and eating disorder. And so you want to make sure you're being put with the right person who's like licensed to help you. And so she's getting her certification through a very well-known organization through eating disorder kind of realm of things to be a support coach through an eating disorder recovery within fitness and food. So there are people out there who do things like that. They exist. They're here to help. And the hardest thing you can do is reach out for help. So I would just say if you can get 10 seconds of courage to send me a DM and we'll chat.
Okay. Perfect. I love it. Well, thank you for sharing your story, McKenna, and thank you for making the time for this.
Of course, thanks for having me. It was so fun.
Well, good. And again, we're going to have to do a follow up just on the business side of McKenna because that's a
Yeah,
whole other story.
exactly.
All right. Well, have a good one, McKenna. Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.